Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Today we're making a bassinet for my son. He's recently born and we don't really have a good way to have a freestanding bassinet next to the bed, and he's very clingy, so we decided to do a built onto the side of the bed bassinet so it kind of extends the sleep space, and this is what it looks like.
So I started out this project much like you would any project with a large piece of stock that I actually salvaged from a dumpster at work. This ended up working out pretty well for me. It's just a piece of MDF, half-inch MDF that someone threw away. That's why you can see a little bit of the scuffs and marks on them. I assumed I could stand them away, or at the very least they'd be covered up with paint or on a surface where it didn't really matter. And before I did any cuts, I had everything laid out really nicely on the piece of stock so there wouldn't be a lot of waste. This was the only piece of this MDF I had. And then I just took it outside and did all the cuts in one go. I had this idea for these big sweeping curves on the bottom, and I decided the best way to get these curves consistent was to trace random circular objects I had laying around. I went through a few different ones before I got the right shapes that I actually wanted. And originally I was just going to stack them all and cut them in one row, but what I didn't know at first was that my jigsaw blade actually was not long enough, so I had to cut the top ones and then trace that onto the lower ones and then cut that separately. So it ended up being not completely perfect, but close enough for what I'm doing. And I hit this with some 120 grit sandpaper just to smooth it off and get any of the marking off. All of the main edges I went through and did a Roman OG router bit finish on, just because that's a finish I like, and it kind of matched a piece later on. You'll see that more towards the end here. I took a half-inch router bit to match the thickness of the material, cut grooves in both of the sides for the bottom to be supported by, to make a pretty strong joint for that. It took some interesting math to get it right though, between the width of the base and where I needed it to line up on each side and how high I wanted the edges to be, all because of the way that it slides between the mattress and the box spring on the bottom. Then comes the fun part of assembly. It went together really smoothly. I should have given the grooves on the sides a little bit more clearance because they ended up gluing up pretty tightly. Just hit it with a little bit of sandpaper in the edges or on the fingers, if you will, of the base, just to make it be a little bit smoother. But it ended up holding together really nicely with just friction. Most of this project was done in stages, so I ended up going back day at a time just to try and figure out what my next step would actually be, seeing as how I had no plans. I cut these grooves to slide in a fourth side that would be removable for when the baby was getting more into being able to be on his own in the future. I actually never made the side for this, but it's something I could add on at any point if I so do desire. And then I kind of did the same thing on the bottom to create a little shelf and a spot to mount where it will actually slide between the box spring and the mattress. The mattress that I was thinking of making for this didn't end up happening, so we used the bassinet mattress that we had, which was a lot thinner. So the thickness of that had to be adjusted for in the overall height of where the base sat, and that came into play by cutting off the bottom edges. And another one of those things I just added throughout the days I worked on this, I decided a middle joint would be good to have just for some extra support, and ended up being not a terrible idea, but not really necessary either. And this is the part that actually slides in between the mattress and the box spring. They're actually just some old door fronts I salvaged off of a dresser that was falling apart that we got rid of. And it worked out pretty good. The idea being that it was a smooth surface that would slide in real nice. And in fact, it worked a little too well, as now the bassinet has a little bit of an issue where every week or so you have to slide it back in a little bit because of the movement of the mattress will actually let it slide out gradually. And here is our finished project. It turned out really nicely. I had to add some legs after all, as you can see.
I don't think that those ended up actually being necessary, but I'd rather be safe than sorry in this kind of thing, having a baby and a bassinet. So I went ahead and added those and the middle brace and the metal braces on the inside just to make sure it was good. And it ended up being a really strong piece that I can actually have stood on top of to access things up high. It works a little bit better than our bed because our bed's too squishy, so that's kind of a interesting little thing. But it was a really fun project to do. I ended up not finishing it, painting it, or anything like that because I wanted to get it in operation and use it. So it is what it is right now, and that's just how it's going to stay. It works really great. It would just be awesome if our son actually used it. So give the video a thumbs up if you guys enjoyed it, and subscribe to see some more of my woodworking videos coming up.